Welcome to the Josh Wright Piano Podcast. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm going to be releasing this on YouTube as well, just as a reminder that we have additional content on the Josh Wright Piano Podcast. Sometimes I'll do some cross-contamination between the two sources, so I'll release some throwback episodes onto the podcast each week for those who prefer listening rather than watching the YouTube video. But I also have a lot of unique content to this platform. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the Josh Wright Piano Podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're listening on the podcast platform already, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about Alberti bass. Massimo wrote in and asked the following. He said, "It's been 5 years since I started, and I'm still facing some timeless issues. When I play Alberti bass on a chord in first inversion, on the left hand, I inevitably feel tense." So let's just go over inversions really quick. If we have a basic chord C, E, G, we call that root position because it's stacked into thirds. Okay, if we have E, G, C, just a reordering of the chord, basically we put that C on the top, E, G, C. That's called first inversion. And then if we put the E, which is now our bottom note, up on top, G, C, E, those are all still C major chords. They're just different orders of C major chords. So root position, first inversion, second inversion, root position. He said, in that first inversion, I tend to curl 3 way too much. And since I feel 3, 4, 5 are weak, I don't have the weight of the arm onto them and tend to lift it with the shoulder. This exacerbates my incapability to keep a light touch, which spoils the texture. In a normal root position, I almost do it tensionless. Any idea on how to teach a stubborn left hand how to play soft without holding up all the weight and feeling safe and relaxed? P.S. I should be more consistent with Hannon and Barron's. I haven't taught from that one. Left hand. But I wonder, what is your suggestion there, such as a 3, 4, 5 left-hand etude? Real quick, let's answer this. A really great exercise is just borrowing from the Chopin Etude Opus 10 number 2. So just do 4 5s. This is starting from middle C. 4 5 3 4 3 4 3 4 5 3 4 3 4 5 3 4 3 4. It's extremely awkward the first time you do that, but it's a wonderful exercise. That Chopin Etude scares so many people, including me. I don't perform it. Basically, the entire etude, this is just right hand, is played with 3, 4, and 5. So when you get into, it's not the craziest etude to learn. It's actually really easy to learn. It's easy to play in a slow or medium tempo. It's just getting in tempo. Can be quite difficult, and it's hard to keep that up throughout the entire piece. But I use that etude as a training grounds if my 3, 4, 5 are feeling weak elsewhere. So even though I don't have any intentions of performing that etude anytime soon, I still like to train with it occasionally because it really strengthens those 3, 4, 5 fingers. So you can do the same thing, Massimo, and then coming back up as well. The fingering's so awkward to do like that. 5, 4, 3, 4, 3, 5, 4, 3. It's so weird to be crossing under the hand like that, but it really just promotes a independence in the fingers. He said, "Many thanks for any ideas. Both of my piano teachers didn't help me solve this issue in 5 years. I'm so sorry to hear that, because the solutions we present today are actually quite simple, and I've never taught this to a student that it hasn't solved the issue or at least helped them tremendously with this issue. And I'm not saying I'm just this amazing teacher. I'm just saying the concepts speak for themselves. It's not hard. What we're going to go over should really put your mind at ease. I just want to talk about 3 types of rotation in the hand. You can think of your wrist as a ball joint. Of course, it can kind of go a full 360 degrees. It does feel like a ball joint in many ways. Doesn't, obviously, your wrist can't go backwards and do it, but you can, at a certain angle, do a full circle with your hand because your wrist has a kind of a, I don't think it's a ball joint. I would have to go look up physical anatomy, but it can do a circular motion. However, having said that, I like to focus in on 3 types of rotation. The rotation turning a doorknob, so that back and forth motion. If you placed your hand on a countertop and you were scrubbing it back and forth just with your fingertips, kind of that lateral side to side motion, and then finally kind of an up and down motion with the wrist. So those are 3 points of rotation that I like to discuss with my students, but today we're just going to be focusing on that doorknob turning rotation. And we will play examples. The most famous example is this. Okay, so this left hand is an Alberti bass figuration. We have a bottom note, a top note, a middle note, and then going back to the top. Another famous example, Mozart Sonata in F major, K332. Okay, that first example is Mozart Sonata in C major, K545. And then I wanted to, we'll get to that a little bit later in this podcast episode. Right now I want to go over this Czerny Opus 299, Exercise 10, with really rapid Alberti bass figurations. And I'm going to do all the demonstrating. And at the end, there's an implication in those Mozart sonatas that we want to talk about finger pedaling, so we'll get to that in a second. But really quick, what we want to go over is 2, 3, and 4 rhythms. I've taught these many times in my videos, but with the special emphasis on only focusing on proper rotation. So we're going to go into that first note. We're going to rotate to the left and then to the right, okay? And you're just going to do that back and forth. And then you're going to repeat that C. You're not going to just move on to the next 2 notes. You'll take the last note of the previous group that you had, so the C, and you'll go C-A. Okay, and you're rotating right, left. Okay, and then you'll rotate left, right. Okay, so left, right, right, left, right. Okay? And you want that distinction in your hand of going back and forth. Now start with a big rotation, so your hand can almost go vertical, like if you were to karate chop the keys. Like that's how vertical I'm talking. And then all the way invert over, and then back and forth. And then try that again and minimize it. But the problem students have with Alberti bass, I've seen this so many times, is they lock their hand. They think, oh, I can't move my hand because geez, the keys are just right under him. So they go, and then they get this mushy mess. Whereas if you just rely on the rotation and your finger does minimal work, yes, it has to be active at the fingertip. I know that. But you can have all that clarity if you just use minimal back and forth rotations. Okay, so we're going to do that throughout the whole first measure. And I would just only take a measure as I do this. Okay, so you do that until it feels good in that kind of fast. If you can imitate the fast tempo that you want just in those 2-note increments, it can help. Then I would do 3 rhythms. So 1, 2, 3. But then, you know what? Let's just do overlapping. So we'll do, okay, 1, 2, 3, first 3 notes. And then I'll take the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th note. And then the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And then the 4th, 5th, and 6th. Let's see, was that right? Yeah, that was right. A little brain teaser here. And then you're covering every single possibility of rotation. What a lot of students will do is they'll just do long, short rhythms, which is great. And then they'll do long, short, 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 long, short, 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 long. And they'll leave it at that. Those are probably the 2 most beneficial rhythms for this pattern, but it's not enough. You want to do the opposites. And then this long, short, short, short denotes a 4 rhythm. So you do 1, 2, 3, 4. That's your first iteration. And then you do erase the first note, so get rid of it and just do 4 notes. Sorry, that was terrible. And you'll notice when you're like put on the spot or the first time you try this, these can be a little bit of a brain tease. So feel free to pause a little bit longer on your long notes. And you can start slowly with these, feeling that rotation. And then as you minimize that rotation down, ultimately, it doesn't appear to an audience like you're rotating. I think that's what stumps pianists is they watch somebody play this. I'm watching my hand right now, even though I'm feeling the tiniest little rotations inside my arm and wrist and hand. It doesn't look like that. So that's what I think stumps a lot of people, is they think, oh, those pianists are just doing that all in their fingers. And it's actually the tiniest little bit of rotation. Okay, and then let's see. So if you wanted to do 4, and then you could do that overlapping exercise that we did. Or you can just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, start from the second note, start from the third note, start from the fourth note, and so forth. But the big thing is just to put the work into your hand and your wrist and your arm. They all work as a unit. And don't place all the emphasis on the fingers. So often we get so obsessed with fingers that we forget to connect into those bigger muscles. And that has solved the issue for every student I've ever taught this to, is just feeling that in a bigger muscle. It's like, oh, wow, his fingers are moving really fast. But actually, my fingers are moving fast, but like the thumb is doing this speed. If you think about it, that's not all that fast. My fourth finger and fifth finger are doing, that's not that fast. Second finger and third finger. So it's not like I'm having to do a repeated note like the Scarlatti toccata. That totally sucks. Haven't played this forever. So anyway, it's not like that. Like you've got to play one note really, really fast. It's just a lot of notes in succession. Okay, so that's what I would advise on getting out the tension. So Massimo, you talked a lot about, the root position's fine, but the first inversion, to me, that would be a mental block. Something about that position is causing you to mentally panic, because actually the concept is the exact same. Because let me show you a couple examples. Like if I do an octave to the G, same concept. If I do a really wide one, C, G, C, G. That one's a little hard because I've got to do a big jump. Let's take a 10th. So E, G, C, G. It's the exact same concept. I'm trying to get rid of that tension by just using bigger muscles and rotating. Finally, I have just a quick little tip. If you're playing a Mozart sonata where you want the clarity, but you want the illusion that it's being pedaled, hold your bass note of the Alberti bass figure down. That way it's not wet. Even if you change every figure, it's still too wet, I think, for that style versus... But it doesn't sound like this. That would be just releasing notes quickly like we were doing in the Czerny. Okay, Opus 299, number 10. And then we're going back to Mozart Sonata K545 in C major. Just holding that bass also works really nicely in this one. Just gives this nice little kind of pillow for the music to sit on. Just this beautiful bass note, providing some resonance and holding. So that can be really helpful. I wouldn't do that in Czerny because it's going to kill the lightness of the... Let's see. I haven't ever played this. I've taught it to a student once. Like that, okay? Okay, so it really complements the right hand. So, okay. I hope that helps. If any of you have any questions, please let me know. My email is josh@joshwrightpiano.com. Make sure to put podcast in the subject line if you'd like me to cover something in an upcoming podcast. I'll leave a few links in the description below. One of them is for a free webinar containing 10 of my favorite tips to take your playing to a higher level. If you haven't seen that, I'd highly suggest watching that because those are tips I use every single day in my practice and teaching, so I hope that helps. I'll leave some links for my paid courses if you'd like to go deeper than this podcast and my YouTube channel go over. And finally, I'll leave a link for my kit, which has all the gear. It's a collection of gear that I use in my studio. If you're interested in recording yourself, I also have some theory books and CD recommendations in there. So have a great week, everyone. Good luck in your practice sessions.